everybody and welcome. My name is Barokoshama and today we're going to be doing another guide for the Elemental Shaman for patch 7.1.5. In this guide we're going to be talking about tips and tricks in order to boost your damage just that little bit to put you above the average player. Specifically in this guide we're going to be talking about AoE, aka area of effect damaging abilities and utilities, and how they work and correlate with haste in order to amplify their numbers and damage that comes out of them. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright guys, so in this section of the video we're going to be talking about how to effectively take advantage of the earthquake buff that we get from the Echoes of the Great Sunrain legendary shoulder pads. Normally when we use earthquake in an AoE situation, we want to put out as many earthquakes as possible over the duration of the AoE kind of combat scenario. But when it comes to single target, we want to put out as much damage as possible. This tip is going to help you out with that. So let's talk about it. First thing off the bat, I want you guys to know that haste affects earthquake dynamically. Dynamically as in over the duration of the earthquake being out for its 6 seconds, whatever your haste rating is or your value of your haste, the tick rate of that earthquake will either tick faster or slower depending on what your haste value is. The default tick rate for earthquake is 6 ticks over 6 seconds, meaning that it will damage the target 6 times over its duration. I have 22% haste value, right? So I'm already past the first breakpoint of earthquake. The first breakpoint being that it will now take an extra time over its 6-second duration. The more haste I have obviously means the more ticks I will get out of a single cast of earthquake. So, keeping this in mind, whenever we get the buff from Echoes of the Great Sunrain, we want to try and game our earthquake and try and get out as much damage as possible from that. What we're going to focus on here is haste buffs like Lust or Heroism or Berserker from the Troll Racial, pretty much anything that's going to boost our haste by a significant amount. Another thing being the Whispers in the Dark Trinket. This trinket drops off Gul'dan in the Nighthold raid, which is the last boss. Its item level and haste rating that you get from it will scale with the whatever drops. So if it's on normal version, heroic, or mythic, the buff that you get from it, as well as the debuff, will change in value. At 88 or 885 item level, which is a normal version but it's Warforged, I get 36% extra casting speed, which is haste by the way, for 12 seconds. I want to game this with my earthquake procs. So when I say that, I mean that whenever I get this buff and I have Echoes of the Great Sunrain buff for my earthquake, I want to put that earthquake out so that it gains its value from the haste that I get from the trinket. Over its duration, so 6 seconds, if the buff is up for the entire duration of that earthquake, it will take an extra 3 times for a total of 10 damaging times that it hits the target. When I have an average tick rate of say 106k, that's an extra 300k damage that I'm getting from a single use of earthquake. This is pretty big when it comes to single target situations when you're trying to min-max and trying to squeeze out as much damage as possible. But the trinket has a downside that we want to look out for. Devil's Due, which is the debuff that we get from when Nefarious Pact, the buff from the trinket, falls off, which reduces our casting speed by 14% for 8 seconds. That 14% is a no-go when it comes to using our buff from the Echoes of the Great Sunrain legendary shoulder pads. We want to look out for this. We don't want to be using the earthquake while this debuff is active because it's slowing down the tick rate of our earthquake. So when we get the buff and we have the debuff from the trinket, we want to wait out the debuff if we can. If you can't, and say if you have the Deceiver's Blood Pact boots as well, like I do, I have the combination. So if I'm getting back-to-back procs from Earthquakes and Earth Shocks, I want to be putting those out as much as possible, just to avoid wasted damage. But when we can help it, if we just have this situation, we want to stay away from using our Earthquakes for that 8 seconds and then use it after. We still have 2 seconds left. Because the buff that we get from the shoulder pads is 10 seconds long, we can still game it so that we're not losing damage on that Earthquake cast. Now that we've talked about Earthquake and I've shown you guys how much haste actually affects the target, I want to actually show you guys in action how many ticks you can get from your Earthquake. So I've actually used Earthquake while Nefarious Pact buff was up. And if we look at how many ticks Earthquake did, it did 10. So this actually works. Okay, this actually works. And I wanted to show you guys this. I didn't have the Echoes of the Great Sundering buff that I get from it, so the damage from the Earthquake isn't damaging all that much. It's only damaging an average of 50k. But when I actually get the buff, you'll see a huge difference when it comes to gaming your Earthquake with this buff, as well as delaying the cast of the Earthquake when you get the Devil's Due debuff. So now that we've gone over Earthquake and the tips and tricks situation, let's move on to the next section of the video. Alright guys, so in this section of the video, we're going to be talking about how to effectively read a situation and make decisions on your spellcasts accordingly. So, let's talk about Earthquake and Earthshock. When is it better to use which one in an AoE situation? In a 3-target situation that we see here, which is the minimal amount of targets that we want to be using Earthquake with, there's some things and factors that come into effect when it comes to picking which spell to use. One factor being, how long are these mobs going to be alive for? If I'm constantly chain lightning, right, and I'm gaining Maelstrom, and these adds are dying very, very quickly, are they going to last a whole duration of my Earthquake? Or are they going to die off halfway through the duration of it? This is some things that you need to take into effect. Earthshock is a single cast spell. It hits the target right away. You don't need to worry about its duration or anything, or if it's falling off, or the mobs are moving out of the way from the Earthquake. So some factors are coming into effect here that you need to look out for. Obviously, when we look at damage difference, Earthquake pulls ahead of Earthshock the majority of the time, unless Earthshock crits. So it's more beneficial to use Earthquake, yes, in a 3-target situation, but looking out for those factors that we said before. Are the targets moving? Are they dying off? Is the duration of the Earthquake going to hit all 3 targets for its entire duration? So like some of this stuff we need to look out for. If there's a focus target in the group that needs to die before the other ones, say Botness, iBotness, a council fight, particularly in the Nighthold raid, there's a lot of movement in that fight when it comes to the bosses. So most of the time it's actually beneficial to use Earthshock instead of Earthquake on your primary target, because they're moving all the time, because so much stuff is happening, because it's pretty much a high movement fight as well, depending on what your raid's game plan is when it comes to defeating that boss. There are decisions that you need to make accordingly in order to boost your damage. So hopefully whenever we talk about this, we can judge what is happening and make decisions on our spellcast accordingly. So this has been a section of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let's move on to the next. Alright guys, so in this section of the video, we're going to be talking about Path of Flame and what we can do in order to make ridiculous durations of flame shocks. I actually had to go on my Horde character in order to do this testing, because the only place is the Horde side of War Spear in order to actually effectively do the testing of Path of Flame. It doesn't work on Alliance side, it doesn't work on any dummies that are out in the world anywhere else, so just had to go on my Horde character in order to do this section of the video. But the testing is going to be the same. It doesn't matter what character I really be on. I just wanted to show you guys exactly how it works. So, Path of Flame spreads to your flame shock to nearby targets, but it takes into account the effect of Pandemic. Pandemic is a dot effect that when you refresh a dot, a certain duration or percentage of the remaining dot that was on the previous dot is added to the new one. So the way that it works with Flame Shock is if you have a full Maelstrom and then you refresh your Flame Shock at a full duration, instead of being, say, at like a normal duration of Flame Shock, which is at like, I guess 20 something seconds, 29 seconds, 30 seconds, it's actually going to add the duration of the previous one, a little small percentage of it to the new dot. So when we use Path of Flame actually, and we spread it to a new target, you can see that it adds again the duration to the new target, and it keeps going up. It goes actually past what the last one was. So now we're at a minute over here. We're tracking it over here. We're at a minute. And it just keeps going up. We're at a minute 30 over there. Waiting for more lava burst procs. But we can get up actually really high. There's been testing that you can actually get up to, I think it was like 5 days or something on a Flame Shock. And I wanted to give you guys this tip because you can get to points in a boss fight. We're going to use a sentence here and just switch back and forth. You can get to points in a boss fight where you will not have to refresh Flame Shock. It stopped tracking there, but you can see it in the middle of my screen. How long the duration of the dot is. It's 15 minutes there, 20 minutes there, like 26 minutes here. It goes up really, really high. And I'm using my weak ore here in order to track it instead of the actual UI. You can see it down here too. 45 minutes. This is going to go up past 50. Like 57 minutes. So you can get up really, really high with your Flame Shock and Path of Flame between two targets. I'm saying this as a tip because on bosses like High Botanist, where it's a council fight and you're going to be going up against 3 targets at some point, this ability and kind of not really an exploit. It's not a visual bug. This is actually happening. The dot is on the target for 2 hours. Almost 2 hours, sorry. There we go, now it's 2 hours. The dot is on the target for 2 hours. This is not a visual bug. It could be a bug itself within the game. And if it gets fixed, I will update the video saying that this is irrelevant. But as far as right now, this is actually happening. And you can get the dot on targets at ridiculous timers. And they just won't fall off until either the target dies or the dot is dispelled. So it's still going. It's still going. How high can we actually get this up? 1,000 hours. Like, low key, 1,000 hours. No biggie. Keeps going up. So the way I say that, the reason I say this is because on a fight like High Botanist, when you're actually versing 3 targets, you will not have to refresh your Flame Shock over the duration of the entire fight when you get it up to a certain point on all the targets. So, keeping that in mind, playing and gaming your Flame Shock can be a very good way of using less GCDs on refreshing your Flame Shock on targets. Less usage of GCDs equals more cast of your filler spells, equals Lightning Bolt, which is more Maelstrom generation, which equals more Earth Shocks, which is just more damage in general. Flesh Totem, another shaman that does guides and helps out with the Elemental Shaman community, already touched on this in one of his videos, and I will put a link to his channel in the description down below, so go check out his stuff. He's a really great guy as well. He knows his stuff, just like me and Nasam. I'm also going to be putting a link to Nasam's channel in the description down below as well. Go and check out their stuff. They know what they're talking about, like I said. But I just wanted to put this out there. He already talked about it. Flesh Totem already talked about this, but I wanted to feature it in my video as well because this is a tips and tricks video. So I just wanted to show you guys this. It is pretty ridiculous. Like I said before, it's not a visual bug. This is actually happening. But it could be a bug in the game how pretty much Path of Flame is working with Pandemic. This could be fixed, like I said. So when it does actually get fixed, I will update the video to say that it's actually irrelevant now if it does eventually get fixed. So now that we've covered how ridiculous Flame Shock can get, this is the final point of this portion of the video. Alright guys, so that concludes the tips and tricks video part 2 for the Elemental Shaman for patch 7.1.5. If you like my videos and you want to see more Elemental Shaman content, definitely hit that subscribe button as well as leave a like and a comment on the video. It really helps me out. If you guys want to follow me up on my Twitter and Instagram, I'll be leaving a link to those in the description down below. You guys can also watch me live on twitch.tv. I pretty much stream every day, so you guys can catch me there. I'll be leaving a link to that in the description down below as well. Definitely don't forget to hit up the Storm, Earth, and Lava website, which is a really great source of information for the Elemental Shaman. I'll be leaving a link to that in the description down below as well. Again, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and leave a comment and like, and I will see you guys next time. Keep calm and Maelstrom on.